University of Punjab, Bathinda. Dr. Bansal did his PhD from Punjab University, Chandigarh, and M.Pharm from the University Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Punjab University, Chandigarh, India. He had currently more than 17-year experience, and before than that, he was associate professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences at Maharaja Ranjit Singh Punjab Technical University, Bathinda. Before to that, he was a professor and associate professor at ISF College of Pharmacy from 2014 to 16. Before to that, he was assistant professor in Baba Free University of Health Sciences, Faridkot, and also he worked as a lecturer in SD College of Pharmacy, Barnala. Dr. Bansal currently working in the area of neuropharmacology, targeting movement disorders, behavior pharmacology, molecular and biochemical pharmacology, and natural products targeting pharmacology. Puneet sir has gained more than 80 lakh grant from DST, ICMR, DBT, AICT, etc. Currently, he had more than 120 peer review publications, more than 7 books, and more than 30 book chapters. Puneet sir has guided more than two candidates in the PhD, and currently 2 to 3 students are under guidance. He had guided 30 M.Pharm pharmacology students and co-supervised 24 M.Pharm pharmacology students. So, without taking much time, firstly, I will over to our director, sir. Please say a few words on this online series lecture, and then I will request to Puneet sir that you will continue your lecture.
So thank you very much, Dr. Samsherji. First of all, being a director of this institute on behalf of ISF Dialogue Series, I welcome today's guest and speaker, Dr. Puneet Kumar Bansalji, from core of my hearts. And Dr. Puneet ji, as you know that we are going to start the series. The purpose behind of this 101 ISF Dialogue series to provide the some of the knowledge related to the pharma researcher, student, as well as the faculty member, because most of the person they are involved in the so many dynamic purpose in the research field, and you have selected the topic for the presentation very special. As you know that COVID, after the COVID, number of things, it will the change in the behavior, in the science, in the you can say working condition. Now our peoples and most of the our professional body, either we can say the UGC, AICT, Pharmacy Council of India, most probably in the universities, the culture of the meeting is slightly changed, and this is the right now, this is the very to the point. So this is the one of the biggest of the opportunity, it is the given due to the COVID, and most probably all age group they have come to know what is the technique and what is the strength of the online system. So I hope that this lecture will be very useful to each and everybody. So I just want to inform over here, all lectures they are the recorded lectures, and they will be the available on the YouTube channel, and we can also collect some of the message or the you can say their question on the chat box, and after the compile the question we will discuss with the expert or some of the question answer given by our team. So this is the purpose behind of the ISF dialogue series. So most probably we are the inviting the experts from the industry, academia, research, as well as from the abroad. So thank you very much, Dr. Puneet ji, for accepting our invitation. And today we all are over here to we know that what is the advantage and how we can take the opportunity of the after the post COVID. So thank you very much, and thanks to our ISF Dialogue Series team, especially of the AQAR and the IIC. Both they are the jointly doing the work, and today's coordinator of Dr. Samsher Singh ji or provide the opportunity to invite me on this platform. So thank you very much, and over to Dr. Samsher Singh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable words. So, yes, I will request to all of the student that during this talk, you keep all your this speaker on the mute, so that there would be not any kind of interference. And if you will be having any question, you can put your question in the chat box, and at the end of this event you can ask any questions. So again, I welcome you, Puneet sir, and please you continue your talk.
Hello and
Yes,
good
yes.
afternoon, one and all. First of
Good
all, I
afternoon.
thanks to Praveen Garg sir, Chairman, ISF College of Pharmacy, and Professor G.D. Gupta sir, Director, and Dr. Narang, Vice Principal of the ISFCP, and Professor Shamsher Singh, Coordinator of this online series, for inviting me and other faculty member for inviting me on this virtual platform for interacting with the uh, students of ISF College of Pharmacy. As we all know that ISF is a one brand in the pharmacy profession, and that's all due to the efforts by the management and the faculty member of the ISFCP. So I'm going to talk on a very simple topic, that is the post-COVID era in pharma industry and opportunities and challenges. Hope so my slides are visible to all of you.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to talk on the post-COVID era in pharma industry and opportunity and challenges. And oh, this slide is blank. So can you see anything on this slide? I think so, no, because this slide is like a coronavirus. Like we cannot see the coronavirus, we cannot see the content on these slides. So coronavirus is one of the biggest pandemic in the on this earth. It's a infectious disease caused by coronavirus 2. And first, this fatal disease is first reported in Wuhan, China in December 2019 and subsequently spread globally to become the fifth documented pandemic. But out of the fifth, this one is the biggest pandemic. Globally, there has been 70 to 80 crores confirmed cases of COVID, including 68 to 70 lakhs deaths reported to the WHO. So in India, there has only 4 to 5 crores confirmed cases of COVID-19 with 5 to 6 lakh deaths. But can you believe on this figure? This figure is true? No, I'm not believing on this figure because this figure is not true. Because this figure is only figure that is reported to the WHO. And who reported to WHO? ICMR. Who reported to ICMR? States, government. And who reported to state governments? Hospitals. And who reported to the hospitals? We. And 90% low peoples during the COVID in the first wave not reported to the hospitals that they are confirmed with the COVID. So this figure is only 10% figures. And if we multiply this to 10, then there is approximately 40 to 50 crores people confirmed with the COVID in India only. And deaths, there is no number. We can confirm that how many deaths occurred in the 2 or 3 waves of the COVID, because there are a number of deaths in the first wave that's not reported, that these deaths are due to the coronavirus or with the other diseases. So these are the 5 pandemic that occurred in this world. That started from 1918, then 1957, 1968, 2009, and 2019. And this COVID-19 is the biggest pandemic. No pandemic is likely to have had such a brutal impact on the economy as COVID-19, which has triggered a near total shutdown of social and economic activity. As we all know that the day 22nd of March 2020, when our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the totally shutdown or the lockdown in India. So we all know that we are afraid to out from the home during that 1.5 month. Totally all the activity shut down, and even there are some positive points also. Even the mountains, beautiful mountains of the Uttarakhand is visible from it, Delhi. So our environment clean during that hours, because there was no vehicle on the roads, no population on the roads, everybody in the houses. So it affect the economy and the social life of the peoples. So this is the just history of the COVID. So we will last time. So we will discuss on the later. And this is the situation as per the WHO, in the different regions during the COVID. In America, they reported approximately 3 lakhs deaths. In Europe, in the Southeast Asia, Western Pacific region, Eastern Mediterranean regions, and then in Africa. But these are the only data that is reported to the WHO by the individual country. That already discussed, there is a number of deaths that is not reported to the WHO or in the individual countries. So what type of effect COVID put on us? There is a two type of effect. One is the health, second one is the economy. In the health, deaths. Several families lost their loved ones, and most people who develop COVID-19 fully recovered, but 10 to 20% of people experience a variety of mid and long term effect known as a post COVID condition or the long COVID. Then one of the important is the diabetes. If you just go to the literature, or if you study that the number 90% patients who recover from a COVID suffer from a diabetes. This is There is a two factor. One factor is the COVID. Second factor is the antiviral therapy. During the COVID, doctor prescribed the antiviral because that was the only therapy to recover from the COVID, and the antiviral strongly caused the diabetes. So that is the major disease caused after the COVID recovery. Second one is the heart disease. That is another long-term complication. Then lungs weakness. That's also long-term complication with the patients. The second effect is the economy. Pandemic has a direct impact on the economy. As we all know, there is some small or the big companies that totally shut down after the COVID. The production, distribution, trade, as well as consumption of goods, service of all the type of industry disturbed during the this COVID, and most impact on the pharmaceutical industry also. We cannot say that the pharmaceutical industry is totally shut down, because the only pharmaceutical industries worked during the COVID pandemic, and they supply the drugs at the maximum impact. But the some drugs which are not needed during the COVID, and that are simply drugs used by the normal population for the day routine problems. So that work is affected during the COVID pandemic. So I'm going to discuss this lecture in the three parts. The first one is the Indian pharma industry, a view of the pre-pandemic times and the COVID-induced challenges. And the second is the COVID-triggered transformation and emerging opportunities for the pharma sectors. The third one is what is the road ahead after the COVID. Let's discuss the first point, the Indian pharma industry. The Indian pharma industry, the third largest in the world in terms of volume, fourth largest in the term of value. The pharma sector currently contributes around 1.7% of the country's GDP. The major segments are generic, OTC medicines, API, bulk drug, and the vaccines nowadays. India has the second highest number of US FDA approved plants outside the US. After the China, we are on a second. India is the largest provider of the generic drugs globally. About 20% of the global export in generic drugs met by the India. The pharmaceutical is one of the top 10 attractive sector for foreign investment in India. So this is the basic of the pharma industry, where we lie on the globe. In 1969, Indian pharma industry companies has a 5% share of the Indian market, while global pharma companies has a 95%. But this is totally reversed in 2020. The situation has reversed, with the Indian pharma companies occupying the 85% and the global pharma only 50% of the market nowadays. The Indian medicines are preferred worldwide, therefore rightly making the country the pharmacy of the world. That was the theme of the last pharmacy week. With more than 3,000 pharma companies and a strong network of over 10,500 manufacturing facilities, the industry provides high optimism for the years. So this is the situation of the Indian pharma industry on the globe. These are some top pharmaceutical companies, in which Sun Pharma, Cipla, Dr. Reddy, Zydus, Glenmark, Torrent, Alchem, and so many. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Actually, you all are not visible to me. I'm only looking on the slides. Sometime the connection disconnected and
No, no, sir.
okay, sir. Okay.
Your
The
voice is
Indian
well audible.
Okay, the Indian pharmaceutical industry, there are more than 25,000 registered pharma, small and medium enterprises, which met around 70% of the total country pharmaceutical needs. So that is the SMEs. According to the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, 2.7 million people are employed by the industry either directly or indirectly in high skill areas like research, development, manufacturing, and the selling also. India is one of the largest supplier of the low cost vaccines, and India, as we all know, the Indian Serum Institute is the world largest vaccine manufacturer, and we supply the vaccines within the India and the outside the India during this COVID pandemic. This is another fact that in the pharmaceutical industries, along with the healthcare sector globally, has an impact on the unseen way due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID pandemic shown the strength and the weakness of the Indian pharmaceutical science sectors. So where we are which are the strength of our industry and which are the weakness of our industry. Currently the Indian pharmaceutical sector is in the news of the good reasons. We export millions of drugs and vaccines over 150 countries beside achieving all domestic demands. So we know we have a 140 millions populations, and then we also supply the vaccines to another countries during this COVID pandemic and after this COVID pandemic. The Indian pharmaceutical industry is at the cusp of the transformation. The COVID-19 pandemic provides just the right impetus for the India to introspect on its global leadership position. The Indian pharmaceutical industry has worked on the innovation, scale, and the impact that are the key players in the post-pandemic world. It's a time for the country to focus, become the quality value players. Because in India, if we talk about the pharmaceutical industry, we are working only on the manufacturing, generic manufacturing, but we are less focused on the innovations like on the drug discovery, and that put a impact on the scale or on the globe. So these are the two comparison. Domestic pharma market was hit at the outmost in the during the COVID-19 pandemic. The pharmaceutical units were severely impacted due to the stringent lockdown measure, with companies facing challenge in distribution, manufacturing, and the logistics. So during the COVID pandemic, mostly pharmaceutical units are working, but there was a problem in the distribution and the logistic, because no labor was available during that COVID pandemic. No vehicles were available to distribute the material for the other cities, and some we will discuss in the later slides that some states have the different rules, so they don't allow the vehicles from the other states to enter in their own state. The prescription of the anti-infective, pain, gastro, and the vitamins were down. So there are few class of drugs. Their uses was less during the COVID pandemic. The scale of drug used to treat acute medical condition and the elective procedure hit a slump. So if there was a surgical procedure that is not on the emergency, everybody delayed those procedures for those 2 years during the COVID pandemic. There is another impact on the of the COVID on the pharmaceutical industries. So let's look at these figures. The Indian pharmaceutical industry is like to reach USD in the 130 billions USD by 2023, growing at the compound annual growth rate of 12.3 from the 40.8 billions in 2020. So just look at this. Just look at this figure. This figure is at in 2019, and from 2020 and up to 2030. Look at the growth. This is the projected growth of the Indian industry that is after the COVID pandemic. The pharma export from the Indian across different product categories in the USD, in the dollars. So we are excessive growth in the 2021, like in the drug formulation and the biological bulk drugs and the drug intermediates, vaccines, surgicals, ayush, and the herbals, that it's grow up to approximately 10 to 20% after the during the COVID pandemic. And look at the top 5 export destination for the Indian pharmaceutical industry. We are supplying the drugs to the US, UK, Russia, South Africa, and the Nigeria. This is another graph showing the FDA in the Indian pharmaceutical sectors, like the foreign investment in the India, that also growing in the 2021 as compared to the other years from 2016 to 2019. And it's this data is up to only April to September to 2021. So in every sector during the COVID pandemic or after the COVID pandemic, Indian pharmaceutical industry growing. Export of medical devices from India, we are also growing in this sector. Like the growth is approximately 10% increase in 2021. And now the Indian pharmaceutical industry has been quick to bounce back from the pandemic lows. It has been 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic first struck, but the global economy continues to be hunted by varied uncertainty, such as the constant fear of new variant, logistics, supply chain disruption, inflation in both developed and emerging economics. Still, we have some fear in our mind that new variant come out anytime, and some problem with the logistic during the COVID pandemic and after the COVID pandemic. The Indian pharmaceutical industry bounced back from the lows of the COVID-induced lockdown hit months of April, June 2020 and maintained a strong growth momentum starting September 2020. So after the lockdown, the Indian pharmaceutical industry strongly bounced back, and they shows that we will do anything for our country and for the other countries also. The COVID-19 pandemic brought to light system gap for the Indian pharmaceutical industries. The Indian pharmaceutical industry inspired to grow. There is a need to revamp the infrastructure for the logistic movement and for the storage of the raw materials, including finished products across the country. So we face the three type of problem during the COVID pandemic. First one is the raw material storage. Second one is the supply chain disruption. Third one is the labor shortage and the facility shutdown. Because mostly pharmaceutical companies, they have their storage at the one place. Like if any company like a Cipla, they have the storage material, storage house at Delhi, but their unit at a Baddi. And during the COVID pandemic, it was very difficult to supply the material from Delhi to Baddi. So we have to think about second one is the supply chain disruption. So if uh, every company has a different units at the different cities in India, so if they have a excessive amount of paracetamol in the Kolkata and but less supply in a Baddi or in a Chandigarh or in a Delhi. But during the COVID pandemic, it was very difficult to supply the material from one city to another city. Third one is the labor shortage and the facility shutdown. No labor was available during the COVID pandemic. Everybody leave the industries due to the COVID infection or the fear that they are suffered or they are infected with the COVID if they worked in the pharmaceutical industry or any other industry. Like that problem was faced by the doctors and the nurses also during that COVID pandemic. This is the timeline that we already discussed when the lockdown was occurred during the COVID pandemic. And this is the raw material shortage, disruption in the import of the API. That was the major problem faced by the Indian industry. So we have to think about on this point. For Indian pharma companies, major portion of their raw material sources is import from China. It's not a fact for the India, but for the every country. Every country is depend upon the China. So we are also dependent on the for the API from the China. And during the COVID pandemic, China was the first country who imposed the lockdown. Any disruption in the China bulk drug market has a direct influence on the Indian pharma industry. So we we have to think about the supply of the API for the other countries beside the China. So in 2019, we had depended on the China and from the other countries. So Indian government is continuously increasing the supply of API from the other countries as compared to the China. Labor shortage and the facility shutdown, we already discussed. Restriction of the movement of the laborer inside the plants affected, and the housing society resided by the employees that we already discussed. This was the major problem faced by the doctors and the nurses during the COVID pandemic. They are not entered into the societies by the other resident because they think that if they enter into the society, they spread the virus in the society. In the supply chain disruption, although healthcare industry was exempted from the lockdown restricted under essential services, but freight charges increased by the uh, air, airlines, unavailability of a truck due to the reluctant nature of the truck operators. Lockdown restrictions were not uniform throughout the country. It's depend upon the states. So, suppose one state allow the movement of vehicle, especially for the essential service, but some states do not allow those vehicles to enter into the state. So that was the major problem faced by the truck operators or the other operator vehicles during the COVID pandemic. So these are the another point. The courier service disturbed bulk marketing and the hoarding of the medicine, limited operation from the local administration. Sometimes the local administration also not cooperate with the industry during the COVID pandemic. So how the COVID triggered transformation and emerging opportunity for the pharma sector? We have the opportunities, renewed opportunity in vaccine, generic, and the API manufacturing. So in vaccines, we already proved that we are best, and we supplied the vaccines throughout the country and the other countries. Generics, we are already working on the generics, approximately 70% drugs supplied by the India throughout the globe. And the API, that's a point of discussion because I already discussed that for the API, we are dependent on the China. So we have to think that we need to manufacture the API in our country. The reorganization of the supply chain. We have to think about the reorganization of the supply chain, growing focus on the innovation, interventions, and the therapies. Establish India as the global research and the innovation hub. So the first point is the renewed opportunity in the vaccine, generic, and the API. Largest volume supply to public market of vaccines, we already proved. Over 60% of the global vaccine requirement completed by the India. India is to focus on the research and the development of novel vaccines, and this has become more necessary since the onset of the COVID pandemic. Just look at this figure. This is the Indian vaccine market in USD. In 2019, it's only 1.3%, but up to 2025, it will be a 3.4. So approximately 20% jump into the vaccine market in India. Streamline temperature control shipping of vaccine open opportunities. So if you remember the COVID time, this was the major problem, the shipping or the distribution of the vaccines throughout the India. So we don't have much temperature control vehicle with the government. So we all know the vaccines need a specific temperature to store and the specific temperature to transport from one place to another place. So we have to think about this point also. Next one is the investment opportunities in the API, the drug parks. Indian government nowadays, they are giving the drug parks in the different states, like Baddi is a one drug park, and there is another state. There are so many drug parks that's given by the Indian government. Second one, the China plus one policy. This is the important point of discussion. China plus one policy means we have to think that for the everything we cannot depend upon a China. If this like a COVID pandemic, in future there is another pandemic, again China will shut down all the things, but they have enough things for their peoples, but they not supply the material to other countries. So this is a commonly we have to think that generate the another opportunities in other countries. So if there is any problem with the China, we can take the material from the other countries. With the onset of the pandemic, companies are contemplating on the reducing their dependence on a China. So we have to reduce the dependency on the China. We have to invest in the other countries, or we have to generate the things in our country also. The production linked incentive schemes, we have to attract the companies to invest in the India. Biotechnology related bionest biotech science clusters, this is the one of the major uh, vision of the Indian government, our honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. They giving the bionest biotech parks in India so that they can start their own startups. They are working on the drug discovery. They are working on the vaccines. Reorganization of the supply chains. We have to think upon this point. Virtual supply chain process, automation in the manufacturing, cloud-based IT architect, digital-enabled warehousing and distribution facilities. So if we digitalize everything, we can know where is the material available and how we can supply the material from one place to another place. The drone system is another important point that we can use in the case of emergency. The Indian pharma sector growing focus on the innovation, intervention, and the therapies. I think so. In India, in 2008, every company have had their own drug discovery unit. But in 2008, when I was in my doctorate, at that time there was a recession, and every pharmaceutical company shut down their drug discovery units, and they are only concentrate on the uh, manufacturing. So we have to think on the drug discovery part also, because like this one example I given here, that few patent is going to expire in the India, sorry, in the US. We have to work on those patent molecules so that we can manufacture in India. And some US based company also establish their partnership with the India, and they're going so we can have the FDA approved units in India. India to capitalize on the global biosimilar opportunities, emerging strategy collaboration between the Indian and international pharmaceutical players for biosimilars. We have work on the new chemical identities and the new biological identities. The patent are 8 out of the top 10 biological are set to expire over the next decade. So we can use those expired patent in our country for the manufacturing. The establish India as the global research and innovation hub. What we need to think, the strengthening the regulatory framework, and everybody knows the regulatory framework in India is very tough. It's very difficult to take the permission from a regulatory framework. Processing optimization, technology uses, building expertise on innovation drugs. So we have to look onto these points. Incentivize investment, tax incentives. We can give the tax incentives to the pharmaceutical companies like in a Baddi or near the Uttarakhand, I think so. There is one point in the Uttarakhand also where the government give the tax incentives to the pharmaceutical companies. Patent box regimen. We can inspire. We have to inspire the pharmaceutical industry for the more patent. Creation of the R&D funds. So any companies can generate the funds for the R&D. Creating a facility innovation ecosystem, building industry academia linkage. That's the important point. I think so. Government is also working on this industry linkage. If the academia linked with the industry, they can solve the problem of the industry, or vice versa. Industry can approach the academia for their problems, so that it will save their time, and it will give the opportunity for the academia also, and the student can work directly into the academic link problems. The building infrastructure, research linked the incentive schemes, collaboration across institutional and sectors. So the third is the road ahead, what we can do. The key focus area, the pivotal changes in the regulatory framework and the stronger government supports, the transformative manufacturing to create a more self-reliant pharma ecosystem, digital transformation across the pharma value chain, stipulated impact on India data privacy bill. So, in the first point, strengthening SEDESCO. The SEDESCO is the main important body in our India which give the permission to all the pharma industry related uh, regulatory affairs, creating they can easy uh, give the common platform for industry, and they can ease the regulatory framework so that the maximum Indian industry can create the structure for the API, for the vaccines, for the research, reinforcing manufacturing and the supply chain for domestic as well as the global pharmaceutical market. They can fix the prices for the domestic as well as the international supplies uh, in the emergency or the without the emergency, because sometime during the emergency the transport system increase the prices that directly impact on the cost of the medicines. So transformation manufacturing to create a more self-reliant pharma ecosystem. That is the automation. Everything we need to be automatized, because if there is any pandemic, so there was a shortage of labor that we all know. So if everything is automated, then we can work without the labor sometime. Industry point four, that is this is the initiative by the Indian government and the digitalization manufacturing. Indian government is also working on this industry 4 work on give the some type of the incentives to the companies for the automation and the upgrade the industry as per the pandemic. Upgrading existing manufacturing capabilities, government initiative can aid in the fueling manufacturing growth. Next is the digitalization. The use of artificial intelligence. Nowadays, everybody use the artificial intelligence. Like we nowadays, the student also use the chat GPT for writing a letter. So why we cannot use the artificial intelligence for the clinical trial, for the research and the development? Blockchain and the machine learning in clinical trials process optimize time and the cost saving. Like recently, I think so 2 or 3 day back, there was a news that some Indian, sorry, in the US, they create some chip, and they put the chip in the human, and that is very effective for the clinical trials. And in the manufacturing intelligence process automation, smart components such as RFID tags enhances manufacturing capacity, supply chain and the logistic end-to-end visibility of the supply chain and demand forecasting of inventory level in is vital. So we must know where is the material available and where is the shortage of that material, so we can easily supply the material immediately without any hindrance. The market assess, enhance visualization of the evidence-based clinic results for clinical trials, digitalization technologies for to train professional for promising market assess. So we have to work on these few points to enhance our pharma industry at the global level. So digital transformation in pharmaceutical industry post-COVID. The lockdown, mobility limits, social distance protocol have the rapidly pushed healthcare services and patient monitoring to remote alternative, increasingly opening the door for the greater use of telemedicine, digital therapies, therapeutics, and the decentralized clinical trials. The pandemic also altered conventional sale marketing method by increasing need of online marketing and the communication technology. And I think so we are sitting on the virtual platform that is also originated after the COVID pandemic. The pharmaceutical company all across the world are using advanced machine learning, algorithm, artificial intelligence, power technology to accelerate the drug discovery process. So we can use the artificial intelligence in the Indian pharmaceutical industry. Machine learning, IoT, including robotics, has been devised for automation of the warehouses, driverless transportation, drone-based devices, all which can all the vital significance for the temperature control pharma supply chain. So, as per the report of the Indian Economy Survey in 2021, in the next decade, the domestic market is expected to grow 3 times. As the healthcare sector across the globe is growing, it has opened great career opportunities to the thousands of students of the pharmaceutical sciences. In the current scenario, the demand of medicine is increasing day by day, so the employment in the pharma sector is also rising. This widens the scope for pharma studies in India and abroad. The demand of the medicine is not only increasing due to the COVID, but today, it's my opinion, today there is a demand of two things only. One is the fast food, second one is the hospitals, because day by day the health of the every person deteriorate. Previously, uh, if I talk about my generation or the generation on my above, that approximately 50 to after 50, the people suffer from a disease. But nowadays, everybody suffer from any disease after a 40, and in my next generation, they will suffer from after a 30. So, like a diabetes, like a cardiovascular disorder, hypertension, stress, these diseases are very common nowadays. So for everyone, we need a every disease we need a medicine. So uh, we have a good opportunities if I look on these parameters. Student can pursue bachelor degree program, diploma program, master degree program, and PhD in the pharmaceutical sciences. In the rising demand of pharmaceutical industry in India, pharma students have oceans of career opportunities like a hospital pharmacist, manager, community pharmacist, drug control administration, drug inspectors, marketing, health inspectors, clinical, chemical analysts, technicians, assistant professor. This is the starting assistant professor, associate professor. You can go at any position, food and drug administrator, hospital drug administrator. So there are so many opportunities for the pharma students. With this, the COVID pandemic has prompted us to rethink access to health in the new way. So we have to think on these ways that how we can improve the use of the drugs for the peoples, how the drugs can reach easily in the emergency, like in the COVID pandemic. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. The lecture was very interesting, and I saw that there were so many things that you have discussed here. That the India prepared so many vaccines, and even though this vaccine was utilized by other countries, and even though there was some comorbid condition, due to that comorbid conditions, there was some negative impacts on the health of various patients. And ultimately, you have also discussed that how artificial intelligence and the machine learning process could be useful as a time saving process, and it would be useful in term that there is a less burden over the human being, and so many other things, that how many population they are suffering from the COVID, and number of things that you have discussed here. I am highly thankful to you for your these valuable type of words, and I will again request that if there is any question from the faculty side or the student side, you can ask any question.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, it was a
Good afternoon.
wonderful lecture. You have explained step by step the scenario, post-COVID scenario in the industries, and what are the challenges and what may be the future perspective like artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., etc. So, sir, being a pharmacologist, I just want to ask you one thing that our industries have discovered a lot of vaccines. So, was the discovery of vaccination was the limiting step, or we should go for a formulation like a tablet dosage form? And what is the scenario in this direction, sir?
Actually, after the COVID pandemic, mostly industry working on the vaccines.
Yes, sir.
So it's a just a vision where we have to work. Like I already explained to you that when I was in my M Farm, every industry was their own R&D, like
Yes.
Panacea, Sun Pharma, Ranbaxy. As we all know, the Ranbaxy is sold to Daiichi, and every pharmacologist from Punjab University going into the R&D only, not to the manufacturing and or any side. But after the 2008 recession in India, every industry shut down their R&D, and they are only focused on the generic medicines.
Okay, sir.
So it is a vision of the industry. So nowadays they are only think about on the vaccines, like Serum Institute growing much in the during this COVID pandemic. They prepare the vaccines and supply to the so many countries. Now that's why the mostly industry working on the vaccines. But nowadays the important point is, nowadays one important parameter that we are ignoring is the formulation.
Yes, sir.
Because if the industry think on the formulation, they can grow more, like specific delivery of the drugs, sustained release, like in the based on the chronopharmacology, we can deliver the drugs. If the patient take the medicine in the night, and the medicine will be effective in the morning, that is the based on the chronopharmacology. So if we think about on these points, we can or the industry can grow more. But we are just we follow the others. Now that this is COVID pandemic, and everyone is going toward the vaccines. After a few years, they stop their units, and they are working from any other direction. For a discovery, you have to work on a one direction for so many years, then you will be
Okay.
successful.
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
So any more question from the faculty side? So, sir, I will be having a one last question. That during the time of COVID, there was found that there is some negative impact of this vaccination on the human health.
Hmm.
So, what could be the possible cause of that?
Actually, Samshed, these are the reports just in the news, but nobody confirmed that. Recently, I think so 1 or 2 months back, there was a news that somebody died during the with the cardiovascular disease or the heart attacks, and they are vaccinated. But how you will confirm that this death is occurred due to the vaccines? This is the only rumors, and if there is any trials or any scientific reasons, then we can only say that these effects due to the vaccines. But we on the based on the news by some published by the newspapers, non-scientific persons, we cannot say that vaccines have a side effects. And there is no doubt vaccines, every medicine has a side effect. Vaccines may or may not have a side effects, but we need a scientific reasons for that.
So, thank you, sir. I hope that everybody get the benefit of this presentation. And again, on behalf of IAQC ISFCP, I thank you, sir, for your valuable presentation, valuable words, and for providing us knowledge. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, Samsher, thank you,
Thank you,
and
sir.
thank you all. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, stop the recording. पर नहीं, स्टॉप करनी पड़ेगी सर. आपने लीव कर दिया, मैं बोल रहा था आपको.